It was the Sunday night after Thanksgiving. I was back in my sterile, modern condo in Austin, trying to scrub the feeling of my family's latest humiliation off my skin. Then the email came. The subject line was just 2 words. In all caps. Flagged as urgent notice of default. I opened it. It was from a commercial lending group I'd never heard of. I scanned the legal text until my eyes snagged on 2 things. First, my name. Zahra. Listed as the primary guarantor. Second, the amount $400,000. My blood didn't just run cold. It stopped. This wasn't a credit card. It was a commercial real estate loan. And a default wouldn't just ruin my finances. It could be reported to the state medical board. It could threaten my license to practice medicine. Have you ever felt like the only sane person in your own family? Let me know your story down in the comments. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From a cold, clear rage. On my desk, next to the laptop screen, glowing with the $400,000 default notice, was a physical piece of paper. It was a copy of a certified check. $40,000. I had hand-delivered it to my mother, Brenda, just 3 days ago at that disastrous Thanksgiving dinner. It was supposed to be the final payment. The last bailout to stop the bank from foreclosing on the family home in East Texas. The home she paraded as a symbol of her status as a community pillar. I stared at the check, and my mind started to flip through the pages of my own private ledger. I wasn't a daughter. I had been the silent investor in their performance of a family. I remembered the cash withdrawals. $18,000. Pulled over. 3 months. For my sister Kayla's latest creative entrepreneur project, some kind of artisanal kombucha that never bottled a single drink. I remembered the $10,000 charge for a vintage bracelet I saw Brenda flashing at a charity luncheon. All while she was telling her friends how hard it was to manage the family's legacy. I had always paid. I paid to stop the late night, tearful phone calls. I paid to avoid the guilt. I paid to maintain the fragile, transactional peace we all agreed to call a family. And I always wondered, why me? Why was I the neonatal surgeon who spent 90 hours a week saving lives? The one always expected to save them from themselves. Now, in the harsh light of the default notice, I finally understood. It's the penalty for being the capable child. In a family built on dysfunction, competence isn't celebrated, it's a utility. My success wasn't a source of pride for them. It was a resource, an asset to be liquidated. I wasn't the successful daughter, I was the emergency fund. The more capable I became, the heavier the burden they assigned me. My entire life had been a penalty for being the one who could handle it. I was still staring at the check when my phone lit up on the desk. A text from Kayla. Mom says you got some kind of legal letter. You're really overreacting. It's just paperwork. Zahra. Just paperwork. My medical license was just paperwork. Seconds later, another text. This one from Brenda. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you are creating a massive mess for this family. You need to call us and fix this immediately. I read the word fix. I read the word mess. My stomach twisted. There was no apology. There was no, oh my God. How did this happen? There wasn't even the slightest hint of shame. They weren't just careless. They were predators. And they had just defaulted on the wrong loan. The rage was gone. Replaced by something cold and sharp. The precision of a scalpel. They thought I was their emergency fund. They were about to find out I was the auditor. I didn't reply to their texts. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel the hot flash of anger I expected. That was the old Zahra. The new one. The one staring at a $400,000 fraud was someone else entirely. The rage was crystalline now. Cold. Precise. I'm a surgeon. My entire career is built on acting with precision, under unimaginable pressure. This was just a different kind of operating theater. I didn't call my mother back. I called Rebecca. Rebecca isn't the kind of lawyer you call for a family dispute. She's a forensic litigator. You call her for decontamination? She picked up on the second ring. Zahra. It's Sunday night. I know, I said, My voice perfectly level. The same voice I use in the NICU. I have a situation. I've just received a default notice for a commercial loan I never signed. The amount is $400,000. There was a pause. Just the sound of typing. Who, she asked. The guarantors are listed as my mother, Brenda, and my sister, Kayla. The primary signature is a forgery of my name. I see, she said. Her voice was all business. What do you want me to do? I want everything. I said. A full credit freeze, an emergency temporary restraining order, and a full forensic audit of every account my name has ever been attached to. I want you to find everything. Understood, she said. Send me the default notice. I'll start now. I hung up. I went to my laptop and created a new encrypted folder on my secure server. I named it the Red Ledger. I dragged the default notice into it. This wasn't a family album. This was a case file. An hour later, Rebecca called back. Her tone was gone. It was replaced by something much heavier. Zahra. This is worse than we thought, she said. How? This isn't a simple mortgage. It's a commercial real estate loan with an acceleration clause. When they defaulted, the entire $400,000 became due immediately. But that's not the real problem. I waited. The real problem, she continued, is that as the primary guarantor, the lender can and will sue you personally for your assets, your condo, your savings, but worse, a financial default of this magnitude, tied to a commercial entity, can be reported to the Texas Medical Board. They could argue it constitutes conduct unbecoming. It could put your license at risk. My medical license. The one thing I had built for myself. The one thing that was mine. They hadn't just stolen my money. They had put a gun to the head of my entire life. I felt the last bit of daughter in me evaporate. All that was left was the surgeon. Rebecca, I said. My voice quiet. This is no longer a defense. This is an amputation. What's the first cut? An emergency injunction, she said. We file tomorrow at 9 a.m. We're going to freeze every asset they have. We're going to prove the forgery. We're going to sever your name from them so completely. They won't be able to cash a check in this state again. Do it, I said, and hung up. Rebecca's team worked fast. The next day, she called me. Her voice was different. Not angry. It was focused. Zahra, I'm in the weeds on this loan document for the $400,000. She said. The signature forgery is clean. But that's not what's interesting. What is, I asked. Walking between surgical bays at the hospital. The loan wasn't brokered by your mother. Rebecca said. The primary contact, the one who set up the entire deal with the lending group, is a man named Jeffrey. Your uncle. I stopped walking. The sterile beep of the heart monitors around me faded. That's impossible, I whispered. My Uncle Jeffrey is in prison. He has been for 15 years. For what? Rebecca asked. Embezzlement. My mother told us he nearly destroyed the family business. That he stole everything. Rebecca was silent for a long moment. Zahra, she said slowly. I ran a background check. Your Uncle Jeffrey has never been incarcerated. Not in Texas. Not anywhere in the United States. But he is scheduled to be at my office in 1 hour. And I suggest you be here. 2. I drove to her office, my mind reeling. The story of Uncle Jeffrey was a ghost story in our family. The ultimate cautionary tale Brenda used to prove her own nobility. I had to rebuild everything from the ashes he left. She would say. A martyr, in her own narrative. I walked into the glass-walled conference room. Rebecca was there. And with her was a man in his 60s. Impeccably dressed, in a tailored suit. With sharp, intelligent eyes. He was the opposite of a man who had spent 15 years in prison. Zahra, Rebecca said. This is Jeffrey. Your uncle. He stood up and looked at me. Not with pity, but with a kind of weary recognition. You look just like your father, he said. But you're in prison, I said. The words sounded stupid as soon as they left my mouth. I know, he said, a sad smile touching his lips. That was the story Brenda found convenient. The truth is, I was the co-founder. I was the financial architect of the entire business. Your mother, Brenda, was the face. When your father passed, she and I disagreed on the future. I wanted to build. She wanted to liquidate. So she pushed me out, forged my signature on a buyout agreement, and then told the entire family I had stolen the money and fled. I sank into a chair. My entire childhood was a lie. You knew, I whispered, looking at him. You've been watching. Yes, he said. I've been monitoring her finances for 2 decades. Why did you let this happen? I asked, the anger rising. Why let her do this to me? He leaned forward. And this is the moment that changed everything. He explained it wasn't about the money. It was about me. He couldn't save someone who wasn't ready to be saved. For years, he watched me pay for their approval, finance their dysfunction, willingly participate in the lie. My payments weren't saving the family. They were enabling the abuse. He couldn't step in, or I would have just gone right back to them. He was waiting for me. He was waiting for the day I finally decided to save myself. The $400,000 loan wasn't the signal for me to act. Zahra, he said, his voice quiet. It was the signal that you were finally ready to fight back. And then, he delivered the final, devastating blow. The secondary twist. You see, he said, when Brenda forced me out, I made sure she couldn't destroy what my brother and I built. Her entire income, the money she uses to play community pillar, comes from a management fund I established. A fund I control. And that fund contains a good faith clause. He looked at Rebecca, then back at me. The clause states that if she ever uses the family's assets or name to engage in fraudulent or illegal activity, specifically against another family member, the fund is to be immediately and irrevocably dissolved. My breath caught. I understood. The forgery, the loan against my medical license. Jeffrey's expression was grim. She didn't just hand you the gun to fight back, Zahra, he said. She just handed me the trigger. The emergency injunction and the asset freeze hit them like a shockwave. For 3 days. Silence. No texts from Kayla. No demanding emails from Brenda. Just the quiet hum of Rebecca's team building the case. Then, the inevitable knock. It was a few days before the hearing. I was in my Austin condo, reviewing surgical notes. The knock wasn't at the lobby door. It was at my door. On the 20th floor. She had bypassed security. I looked through the peephole. It was Brenda. She wasn't the community pillar I remembered. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were red and puffy. The expensive coat she wore was rumpled, as if she'd slept in it. The mask of narcissistic nobility had shattered. This was the desperate, grasping woman who had always lived underneath. I opened the door. I didn't open it wide. I just opened it enough to block the entrance with my body. Zahra, she gasped, her voice thick. She immediately tried to push past me, to get inside, to reclaim the territory. My baby. Thank God. You have to stop this. I didn't move. I stood there, solid as the steel frame of the door. Her face crumpled. The tears came. Right on cue. This was the performance I had paid for my entire life. Zahra. Please. She sobbed, grabbing for my arm. You don't understand what you're doing. That man, Jeffrey, he's lying to you. He's a criminal. He's poisoning you against your own family. My family, I said. The words came out colder than I expected. Clinical. Yes, us, me, Kayla, she shrieked, her voice cracking. You're destroying us. You're destroying your mother after everything I did for you, everything I sacrificed. I gave you everything. I looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't see a mother. I saw the illness. I saw the rot. I had spent my life trying to manage the symptoms, paying off the debts, treating the superficial wounds, but I'd never been allowed to address the tumor. The default notice wasn't a cry for help. It was the tumor metastasizing, and it was threatening to kill the host. I'm not destroying anything. Brenda, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through her sobs and stopped them cold. I'm not the one who forged a signature on a $400,000 loan. I continued. I'm not the one who risked my medical license. I'm not the one who violated a good faith clause. Her face went from performative grief to pale, slack-jawed shock. She didn't know I knew about the fund. You, she stammered. You don't know what you're talking about. It was paperwork. It was for the family, to help Kayla. You have so much. Zahra. We just needed. You needed an asset. I finished for her. And when I stopped being a willing one, you decided to take it by force. You have to fix this, she commanded, the old narcissistic rage flashing in her eyes. You call your lawyer. You call Jeffrey. You tell them to stop this now? No, I said. It was the first time in my 34 years I had ever used that word with her and meant it. No, I said again. I stepped back and reached for the stack of documents Rebecca had couriered to me. I didn't hand her an eviction notice. I handed her a copy of Jeffrey's sworn affidavit detailing the good faith clause. I handed her a copy of the emergency injunction signed by a judge. These are your choices, I said, my voice as steady as my hand during a 12-hour surgery. Not mine. You're not upset because you committed a crime. Brenda, you're just upset that you finally got caught. She stared at the papers, her mind visibly failing to process a reality she couldn't control. Her face contorted, searching for a new mask to wear, and finding none. All that was left was a raw, ugly entitlement. You, she hissed, the word trembling with a lifetime of venom. You will regret this. I already regret the last 20 years. I said. I won't regret this. I stepped back and closed the door. It wasn't a slam. It was a quiet, heavy, definitive click. The sound of a vault being sealed. Through the peephole, I watched her stand there for a full minute, her hands clutching the papers. She was motionless. Suspended in the moment, her world ended. Finally, she turned and walked away. I picked up my phone. I opened the smart lock app for my building. I found Brenda family in the guest access list. I pressed revoke. Un moment later. My phone buzzed. A security alert from the front desk. Brenda, family is attempting to access the elevator. I watched the live camera feed on my phone. She was jabbing at the keypad, her face twisting in confusion, then in rage, as the panel flashed red. Over and over. Access denied. Access denied. I turned off the feed. The amputation was complete. The hearing was not a trial. It was a legal execution. Brenda and Kayla had been forced to hire a lawyer. A man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He tried to argue family misunderstanding. He tried to paint me as a vindictive, ungrateful daughter. He tried to paint Brenda as a loving mother who had just made a paperwork error. Then Rebecca stood up. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't perform. She simply presented the facts. Exhibit A, the $400,000 loan document, with the forged signature next to my verified, notarized real one. The difference was glaring. Exhibit B, a forensic analysis of their bank accounts, showing the $18,000 transfers to Kayla, the $10,000 jewelry purchase. Exhibit C, the sworn, ironclad affidavit from Jeffrey, complete with the original incorporation papers of the family business and the brokerage statements for the management fund. And finally, Exhibit D, the good faith clause, typed in stark, black and white, stating that any act of fraud would dissolve the fund immediately. It took the judge less than 20 minutes. He looked at my mother, his face a mask of cold disdain. This court is not in the habit of mistaking grand larceny for a paperwork error, he said. He delivered the judgment like a series of hammer blows. 1. The loan was declared null and void, as it pertained to me, due to proven forgery. My name was to be scrubbed. My medical license was safe. 2. The court found that Brenda Astrusti had engaged in a clear act of fraud against a fellow beneficiary. The good faith clause was activated. Effective immediately. The management fund was to be dissolved. 3. The family home in East Texas and all remaining assets were to be seized and liquidated to pay the creditors Brenda had tried to sick on me. I watched my mother. Her face, the one that had held the community captive for decades, just collapsed. The performance was over. The community pillar was a fraud. And now everyone knew it. Kayla was openly sobbing. But not for her mother. For the money. For the lifestyle that was already gone. They were left with nothing. Not even a reputation to hide behind. It was over. That evening, Jeffrey met me in the lobby of my condo. He didn't say I told you so. He didn't gloat. He just looked at me. And I saw the reflection of my father in his eyes. It's done. I said. Yes. He said. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a single, old-fashioned brass key. He placed it in my hand. I looked at it. Confused. What's this? It's the key to my original penthouse, he said. His voice quiet. The one Brenda took from me all those years ago when she pushed me out. I bought it back last week. During the asset freeze. I stared at the key. It was heavy in my palm. It's yours, Zahra, he said. It's not a handout. It's a restoration. I closed my hand around the key. It wasn't just a home. It was the return of a legacy. A real one. Not one built on lies and performance. But one that had been earned by competence. Lost by fraud. And reclaimed by the truth. That night, I was in the penthouse. My new home. The city of Austin glittered below me like a field of scattered diamonds. It was quiet. The air didn't feel sterile. Like my condo, it felt still. I opened my laptop. On the desktop was the one last piece of the old life. The encrypted folder, the red ledger. I opened it. I looked at it all one last time. The default notice. The forged signature. The screenshots of Kayla's entitled text messages. The bank statements showing the $18,000 bleeds and the $10,000 bracelet. The court documents. Stamped and final. The entire, ugly, meticulous record of my betrayal. My hand went to the trackpad. I highlighted the folder. And then, I moved the cursor. And I right-clicked. Delete. It was gone. I emptied the trash. For the first time in my entire life, I felt light. I felt clear. I stood there, looking out the window. And I finally understood. For years, I thought they were my roots. I thought they were the family that grounded me. And I had to hold on. No matter how much it hurt, I was wrong. They weren't my roots. They were an anchor. You think an anchor is supposed to keep you safe? But all it really does is hold you in one place. Stuck in the mud. While the rest of the world sails by. And cutting an anchor isn't an act of betrayal. It's an act of courage. It's the necessary, painful, and final cut you have to make before your own ship can finally sail. Thank you for listening to this story. Have you ever had to cut an anchor in your own life? Let me know your story in the comments below. Please share this with